Австралийн Welcome.
Сайн байцгаана уу хүнд үзэгчдээ. Өнөөдөр орой манай дефакто нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор та бидний танил Камерон МакРэй оролцож байна. Өнөөдөр Камерон МакРэй СкайПаать Партнерсийн компанийн ерөнхийлөгчөөр ажилладаг. Өмнө Оюу Толгой компанийн Гүйцэтгэх Захирлаар ажиллаж байсныг та бүхэн мэднэ.
Камерон МакРэй Австралийн Нью Ингландын их сургуулийн санхүү удирдлагын бакалавр, МТ Элиза болон Монош их сургуулийн бизнес удирдлагын магистр зэрэг тус хүртсэн. Тэрээр Өмнөд Африкт Richards Bay Minerals болон Зимбабвед Мурова Диамонд компаниудын гүйцэтгэх захирлаар тус ажиллаж байсан. Уулуурхайн салбарт 30 гаруй жил ажилласан туршлагатай. Өмнө McRae Оюу Толгой компанид гүйцэтгэх захирал болон ерөнхийлөгчийн албан тушаалыг хашж байсан бөгөөд Монгол дахь Рио Тинто компани захирал байсан билээ. Камерон МакРэй одоогоор СкайПаать Партнерсийн компанийн ерөнхийлөгч, Кинкора Коппер компани төлөөлөн удирдах зөвлөлд зөвлөхөөр ажилладаг бөгөөд Монголын стратегийн асуудлууд дээр төвлөрсөн хараат бус тинк танкийн үүсгэн байгуулагч юм.
Good evening.
Evening, Joe.
How is your new job?
It's great, and they've got me working very hard from day one.
Okay. So what is the role of, what's the mission of your company and what does it do and what is your role there?
Well, I think you would call us a financial advisory company, but our primary focus is to help companies adopt good strategies, business strategies, and then to back those up with financing strategies, and if needed to assist them with the raising of finance. But we're also looking at being a principal investor, and we're doing a fair bit of work in that area.
So you said that you will help companies to find a right strategy and if necessary also financing.
Yeah, it's important. A lot of companies have good ideas and they need to go out to the marketplace for finance, but quite often they need to make sure that their ideas are going to be understood by the lenders or the investors, and they need to make sure that those strategies are explainable so we can work with them on their strategies as well as helping them with funding solutions.
Particular industries or?
No, across the board, but obviously in Mongolia, the big industry is mining, so there are a lot of people there with projects that they want assistance with.
What are you doing in this company and why you are be a part of the company?
Okay, well, my role is executive chairman, which means that I'm responsible for dealing with shareholder issues, with the board of directors, how the company is set up. But being an executive chairman means I take more of an interest in day-to-day matters. And while the company is young and we're getting set up and we're building a reputation in Mongolia, I play a more active role.
Have you started any project?
We've been doing some advisory work for a number of clients, and we've been talking with a number to take on work. So, yeah, we've been busy so far.
Cameron, you have been running the largest show in this country, and today you became a part of this consulting company.
Yes.
How do you feel?
I feel great. It's. I think in your life you should always have some changes a few times, and after 30 years. 28 years with Rio Tinto and over 30 years in the mining industry, I think it's a good time to try something different.
28 years with Rio Tinto, and you have been a part of several merger and acquisitions of the company, including to become a group as a Rio Tinto group. Please tell us the last big things, what happened.
Well, in the middle of the 1990s, two companies, RTZ and CRA ended up having talks about merging together. One of those companies was shareholder in the other, and they were competing for opportunities around the world, and it made more sense for them to come together. And I was part of the team then that looked at that and convinced the shareholders in both companies that that was a good idea. So that was my role then, and during my time with Rio, I've worked on quite a number of sort of merger or restructuring type deals in the mining industry.
Why did you leave Rio?
Well, my contract came to an end, and like all good things, you know, I think you need to decide how you're going to spend the rest of your career, and that was a decision that was made.
So you have decided to go on your own.
I've made a decision that I don't want to work for a big company again. You know, after 28 years, that's a long time playing the politics of big companies and working in a lot of locations. I was especially interested in doing something on my own, doing something that was a start-up, and being involved in SkaiPaать, and also advising a small start-up exploration company, and being involved in a think tank, things that are new for me and should keep me challenged.
You have been in charge of this largest project from almost the beginning, I mean the middle of it, for the last 3 years, and before you come it was not yet in operation, and you came, you have been in charge of all aspects, and you guys made things ahead of schedule. And after that, how do you see the project today?
Well, I think the project's in good shape. You know, the mining industry generally, and the global economy for mining is difficult, and as a consequence of that, you're seeing a lot of projects stalled and a lot of capital expenditure being reduced. So we're in that part of the cycle juggle where, you know, the leaders of mining companies focus on costs and survival. I think the good thing about OT is that yes, it did come in on schedule and pretty much to budget. It's well set up to go forward now. You know, the workforce is in good shape, and a lot of the issues are resolved. But you know, OT is a 100-year project, and there's still a lot of money to be spent for it to achieve its potential. And the new CEO on the board and Rio Tinto behind it, you know, will continue the work to develop Ojuu Толгой to its full potential.
See, we are very much expecting OT keeps going on now, in particular at this time, when we have this economic downturn, difficulties, and I hope it will go on, and we are, Mongolians are waiting, expecting very much for the beginning of this underground mine.
Yeah, I think everybody would like to see the underground development proceed. You know, at the end of the day, that's where the majority of the wealth sits, is in the underground ore bodies. There's a huge capital expenditure associated with that, and some of the issues that the shareholders are talking about are impacting on the decision to go forward. So I just trust that the shareholders will continue their discussions and try to reach a resolution on those quickly, because you know, Ojuu Толгой won't reach its full potential until the underground is recommenced and it moves into production.
Welcome. Yep, OT was a large part of our economy. You looks like the working for another part of the economy. How do you feel, and what kind of problems you think that we do face today?
Well, Jargal, when I was at OT, I was focused on, I guess, a business that contributed to about 30% of the country's GDP.
Okay.
What I've said to a few of my friends is now I've got the opportunity to work on the other 70%. So I think there's plenty of challenges there. With regard to the other 70% of the economy, which wants to grow just as much as Ojuu Толгой, yeah, there are challenges, and some of those challenges come from outside of the country, and some of those challenges have been created from inside of the country.
You have been working abroad in many countries, mostly mineral-rich countries, and you have seen some of them turning into a wealthy country, some of them maybe not that wealthy, like Zimbabwe, where you were also working. I mean, you have been also working, I mean, in charge of the largest project in the country. What's your really intrinsic thinking about challenge 1, 2, 3 we face in Mongolia? Why we are not getting that growth high to reach its growth into the life of everybody? Well,
Mongolia's had tremendous GDP growth over the last 3 years. If you look at 2010, 11, 12 and some of 13, And a fair bit of that was on the back of Ojuu Толгой and the confidence that Ojuu Толгой brought to other parts of the economy and to other investors. And there were also some other significant investments occurring at that time, like with energy resources and a few of the coal resources. So, Ojuu Толгой, has been an engine room. As the Phase 1 capital project has come to an end, that part of an injection into the economy has stopped, but at the same time we've now got an operating business there. At the other part of the economy, the other businesses, the challenges are really I think around the coal industry. Coal demand into or from China has slowed considerably. Coal prices have reduced a lot. Mongolia grew its volumes into China in 2012, and there was a reversal of that in 2013. And those factors together have had a pretty significant impact on not only GDP but government finances, etc. So I think one of the challenges in what is a large country but with a small economy at this point in time is to actually keep the economic engine going. And to keep that economic engine going, you have to be able to survive the external issues, but you also need to make sure that people regard your country as a very attractive location to send money that can be invested into projects, which can be, the primary tool of economic growth.
Not only mining projects.
Not only mining projects.
So you said the people look at Mongolia like a country where they can to send money. What does it take for them to think so that they will send money and they will work in here?
Well, obviously they've got to like Mongolia as a destination. They've got to want to set up a business there. They've got to want to be a part of the Mongolian fabric in the economy. That's important. But a lot of the things that they look at while they're making that assessment are around, is Mongolia a safe location to deposit large sums of money for usually long periods of time? Will they be able to, at some point, repatriate their profits, if there are profits? Are they able to recover their loans that they put into the country, and are they at some point able to recover their investment or sell their investment to other companies? They look at those issues, but they also look at sort of how the operating environment works, and that is, is it easy to operate in the Mongolian economy? Is it easy to deal with the government? Is it easy to deal with other companies in Mongolia? And all of those things have an impact.
When those investors ask these questions, for example, is it safe? Is it easy in terms of business operation? How would you reply?
Well, I would say that if you look back over the last couple of years, international investors are saying that Mongolia was a great place to invest in 2011 and 2010, but it's become tougher in 2012 and 2013. And part of the reasons for that are, obviously economic, but there have been a number of issues that have occurred that have dented confidence of the international investors. And I think one of the challenges facing the government is to not only put in place the new legislation that makes investing attractive, but also to resolve some of the historical issues that exist in the business community. And I think when those issues are resolved, it will give international investors the confidence that's required to invest here. You said
historical. What do you mean?
Well, the issues that have occurred in the past that are still outstanding, and that are symbolic to international investors as to whether it's a safe place to invest.
Like what?
Well, obviously, you could talk about a number of the disputes that exist between the government and different business groups. One is obviously the issues surrounding Ojuu Толгой. There have been a number of court cases that are in play currently between the government. I think when the government can put those issues into the past and say they've been dealt with and they've been dealt with fairly, international investors will then look at the merits of legislation, and they'll look at the opportunities that exist on the ground to invest money in big projects, whether they're mining, whether they're infrastructure, whether they're railroads, whether they're hospitals. You know, that money needs to come from somewhere, and people just want to know that it's a safe environment to invest.
I recall once you were saying, being an OT CEO, that you were expecting several OT to come to this country.
Yeah.
And it did not happen, though potentially it may happen.
Potentially there's, I think, other OTs out there. That's my own view. I'm now advising a small exploration company that's operating some exploration permits close to OT in the same porphyry belt. If you look at the degree of exploration that has occurred in the country, it's relatively unexplored. I think the Russians have a lot of geological data, but that doesn't sit in Mongolia. And so the opportunity for big mining operations to occur is significant. But Juggle, what you have to remember is you can have a big slab of coal sitting in the ground, say up in northwest Mongolia, but you still have to be able to dig that out. You have to get it on a rail, you have to get it to Russia or China, and you have to get a fair price for the product. And if you can't do those things, that block of coal in the ground isn't worth anything.
That piece of deposit of coal requires a lot of investment, which you can raise either from a bank as a loan or your equity from the stock market. And you have been in charge of not only OT, but for other bigger projects. What does it take for international big-sized banks to invest huge money to a project like Oюу Толгой? What are they really thinking about that?
Well, they're obviously look at a lot of factors, but at the end of the day, they want to know that it's a reasonably safe investment, and that the key shareholders in the project are going to do their best for the project, which looks after the bank's interest. The Oюu Толгой project is quite unique in that the project was developed right up to the end of the construction purely by foreign money and without the assistance of banks. So the banks have only come on board with the project financing package in the latter stages of the development. Now this is very unusual for mining projects because generally speaking banks will not lend unless there are equity investors in place in the first place, and then they may lend a certain percentage of the cost of constructing a mine and getting the business going. So banks require international investors or investors with money to come first to take the risks, and then the banks generally take a lower reward than the investors, but they basically get first call on any of the assets of the business in the event that the business hits difficult times and they need to be repaid.
Yet big banks are ready to invest or borrow money to Oyu project as of today.
Well, I don't know the latest status of the project finance discussions between the banks and the shareholders, but last year they've had in place a facility that the shareholders could draw down on if they could resolve the issues between them to allow that to occur. So that's a pretty amazing facility, twice the size of any project finance raising ever in the mining industry globally.
Wow. So what you're saying is what these international banks are going to borrow to this project under the project financing scheme is the largest one?
Yeah, that would be the largest project finance offered to a mining venture in the world ever. Now I think that's a good indication of their confidence in Mongolia if Mongolia can get all of the factors right to allow that investment by the banks to occur.
So that's the situation in the country. And yet we need stable political business environment in the country, and you are also creating a think tank in the country. Please tell us about that think tank.
That's correct. There are already a number of think tanks and groups that advise on policy in the country, either to the government or to business associations. But I think one of the issues that was identified last year through the NCPSS and the Business Council of Mongolia and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry was that there wasn't really a think tank that was focused on the big sort of economic issues of strategic significance to Mongolia. And a number of us met and talked about this issue late last year and decided that we should establish an independent NGO that would look at these sorts of big economic issues.
For example?
Well, like the hypothesis really is that in Mongolia, if the government can support a vibrant business community, then that business community, be it domestic and international, will invest solidly and large amounts of money into Mongolia, and that will have a very positive economic effect. It will assist GDP, it will see a lot of social development occur, and it will see Mongolia become a more significant player in the Asian region. So that's the driver there. You know, the government help business to be successful, business drive the economy and grow the economy, and then the government benefits from a strong economy and it can invest back in its people and the services.
Will you go to particular projects, particular industry in that sense, or it's a general issue?
Well, at the moment it's a general issue. We'll start at the top. We'll understand all of the strategic work that's already been done in Mongolia and we'll bring that together into a central location. We'll look at what action plans have been proposed by different parties, whether they're political parties or business groups, and we'll try and give, as a first output, a status on where Mongolia is sitting from the perspective of developing a strong economy. Then there'll be research projects that we can do, and then we can report back on. And as I said, it's meant to be an independent NGO. So we're setting ourselves up so we can't be influenced by individual businesses or business associations or the government itself. So it really will be, as your show is, an independent body giving advice that's meant to be for the benefit of Mongolia.
So you will go through these ideas, you make some research, and you will you will represent certain possibilities, opportunities if we do particular better conditions, etc.
We will not be a lobby group. We'll publish our research. We'll probably present it to the National Council for Private Sector Support, which is like an umbrella organisation over the business groups. We'll publish it on a website. We'll make it available to the government. And we'll be able to meet with people and discuss it afterwards.
For the general audience as well.
For the general audience as well. Though I would expect the results would probably be published more by the business community than by the think tank itself.
Remember, a few years ago there was a Harvard group who made a smaller report on possible Mongolian worldwide competitive industries. That included mining logistics.
Yes.
So that Mongolians have that skills with the help of projects like OT and other larger projects, so that they can extend their services to all around the world. How do you think about that?
Well, I think it's possible that Mongolian companies could internationalise their operations, but to be able to be offering services in other countries, you have to be world class. Otherwise you will just not win the work.
Yes.
And you have to become world class in Mongolia first and then look at your expansion. So one of the things that the EPCRC did, that think tank, was to monitor, take quite a large number of measures of competitiveness in Mongolia compared to a basket of other countries. Some from within Asia, some within Central Asia, some in the Arabic states, and some in Europe, to see how Mongolia compared. And what it actually showed in that report was that Mongolia sat at the bottom end of most of the tables in terms of competitiveness. And all that really highlighted to the government is that we need to invest a lot in both the government and in the corporations into closing that gap to being world class, because we can't be international until we become very high standard in our own backyard or in our own country.
We talk about probably to be a world-class mining logistics provider, service provider, Mongolia to have people probably more ready.
Yeah.
And that means what, diploma, or how we can get these people ready?
Well, there's two ways you can become internationally world-class as an individual in the mining industry.
Okay.
And that is, you can work for a world-class company and get the training and get the exposure to the systems and standards that they operate to. And I think that's, one of the great things about Ojuu Толгой is that, that company's been established to world-class standards. So anyone working at Ojuu Толгой, if they, really focus on their career, it's possible for them to get work overseas, in South America, in South Africa, in Australia, if they're the best in their game, and there's a shortage of that skill set.
Okay.
So from an individual perspective, I would, if I was a young Mongolian, I'd be saying I want more world-class businesses in Mongolia that I can go and work at to get the experience, to allow me to have some international experience at some time in my career.
Mining logistics, for our audience, you will include what kind of services?
Well, mining logistics, typically when people talk about logistics, they talk about moving product from A to B. And I think if you're talking about mining services, that can be everything that is involved in supporting a mine, from exploration through to assessing ore bodies, like doing the intelligent work, to providing services such as blasting, drilling, different subcontracting. Just even the running of camps can be a very difficult engagement, especially if you have to set up camps in the middle of the Gobi Desert, where it's minus 30 degrees in the winter and plus 40 in the summer, and you need to keep people healthy and fit in that environment.
That mining logistics would be a big part of operation cost of such a mining company like OT, right?
Yes, it can be. And one of the things that mining companies need to do is to keep their cost structures low. So they want to deal with service providers who are very cost focused, which is another reason why Mongolian companies need to learn how to be, world class, because if you cannot offer a low-cost solution, high quality but low-cost solution, you're not going to be successful winning work outside of Mongolia.
What does it take to be, you said, high quality, low-cost solutions?
Well, high quality, if you're, say, in the explosives game, you need to be able to offer a good explosives package. It needs to perform the task. There's a lot of technical outcomes that you need in blasting, but you also need for it to be cost competitive, because it's one of the cost inputs to mining.
When you do that explosive things, for example, in undermine, in OT, there's sort of you go one corridor long, then the other corridor down. So when you explode and change, will not be any danger. The whole this will be collapsed.
Well, that's one of the services you need. You need good mine planners and people who know what the correct sequence is and how to develop a pit and open it up safely, and blasting is one of those elements.
It will go from up or from down? Up?
Well, you always start at the top and work your way down.
Well, then it makes even danger, no?
Well, when...
And you will still like a floor, pipes.
Well, if it's an open cut, what's important is that when you have a blast in the pit is that all of the people are outside of the blast radius. So if a blast is capable of throwing a rock 500 metres, then you need to have your people much further back than 500 metres so that people can't get hurt.
Yeah, but down the road, we talk about 1.5 kilometre down, right? Then the whole ceiling could be very taller and taller of this space, or not? Well,
I think you're talking actually about the underground mine then.
Yes.
We'll mine down to about 700 to 800 metres in the open pit, but the underground resources are at a much deeper level, and they've actually got a system now of removing the rock, which is called caving, and that actually, gravity does the work. You don't need to blast. most of the blasting that occurs underground is where they're developing the tunnels, but not actually removing the rock.
Wow, oh, I see. What I was told this is one of very few world-class mine that use that technology.
There are a number around the world, Jargal. You know, in Irian Jaya, the Freeport operation is operating a large number of, a number of large block caves. The Oюу Толгойд block cave will be at the extremity of size in terms of, you know, what tonnages they're taking out of it on an annual basis. So it's a lot of people watching to see how successful the block caving operation will be at OT.
You know, I think with your knowledge and experience, you will be a very key person for Mongolia to raise fund for, of course, larger mining operations in the country. And do you have a particular focused mining projects you will work on?
Well, we need, you know, as part of the ＳkайPaать operation, you know, we're really here for people to approach us to say, can we help? And, you know, obviously we want to get involved with clients, you know, where we know that clients exist, we'll go and talk to them and see what we can do for them. But, you know, a lot of people that get involved in mining aren't necessarily the Rio Tintos and BHPs of the world. They're people with less experience, with less capital, and, you know, they really do need assistance to think through how they can grow their exploration project into maybe a $200 million construction project. And even $200 million, Jargal, sounds like a lot of money, but if you look at OT that spent $7 billion just to get to phase one, you can see that that's really a small project in the scheme of things. But $200 million is a lot of money.
The very fact that you are staying in this country after such a big project you were running gives me a hope that mining industry has a lot of future in this country, and also in spite of all this stuff we have, changes, we have a good future, a stable economy.
I think, Jargal, the challenges in front of Mongolia and its leaders and leading business people are of a short-term nature. They have to be addressed, and, you know, new solutions need to be put in place. But if you look at the opportunities that are out there, you know, Mongolia per head of population or per square kilometre of land, there's probably as many opportunities as any country in the world, and I think that makes it exciting. And I think Mongolians themselves want to see this development come. So I think as a, you know, the opportunities can be matched with enthusiasm, and if we can get the international financial community enthused about Mongolia, I think you're going to see record rates of GDP growth over the next decade.
Well, let it be.
Let it be.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jargal.
Thank you.